This is Protected Thoughts from the Intellectual Property Team at McBrayer. This is an overview of state or federal law and regulation and does not constitute legal advice. Services may be performed by others. For more information, visit mcbrayerfirm.com.
Welcome to Protected Thoughts. I'm Mari-Elise Paul, and I'm here with Bruce Paul, and we have a special guest today, Olivia Biven from University of Louisville, to talk with us about an exciting and very timely topic, name, image, and likeness rights, and university intellectual property. Welcome, Olivia.
Hi, thanks for having me.
We're so happy to have you and appreciate your time talking with us today. And I think this is going to be a really exciting topic to discuss since we have just had all of those exciting NCAA playoffs, and we have the NBA draft coming up. So thanks for being here today.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Olivia, if you can just introduce yourself to the audience, tell us who you are, where you're from, what's your current role, how'd you get there, whatever you want to share.
Yeah, for sure. Olivia Biven. I'm here at the University of Louisville on the athletics side. I'm the Assistant Athletic Director for Brand, Creative Services, and Licensing. Been in college athletics for 10 years. This is year 4 at Louisville. Originally I'm from Louisville. I dabbled around in Louisville, small town in Western Kentucky. My dad was a high school football coach, so we moved around quite a bit when he was just getting coaching gigs. But I say I'm from Louisville because, I went to high school in Louisville, and so the first question everyone asks is, where'd you go to high school? I always just claim Louisville, and no one really knows where Cadiz, Kentucky is. So I lived about 9 years in Cadiz, Kentucky. So anyways, I was born here and finished my high school career here as well. And then I went to school at Western Kentucky University. I didn't apply anywhere else. That's where I wanted to go. At the time, I went to Fern Creek High School. We had a broadcast and journalism magnet. We had our own student-run radio station, a big yearbook program and broadcast studio. And so that was my, other than sports, my extracurricular in high school. And Western Kentucky has the national program for photojournalism, broadcast, and that's where I wanted to go. At the time, I wanted to be a photojournalist. That was my major when I started my freshman year. My dream was to shoot for the Boston Globe and shoot the Patriots and the Red Sox and the Celtics, and moved to the city of Boston. I don't know. I played in the World Series, Little League World Series in Boston in high school, and loved the city and wanted to move there. So that's what I started at Western Kentucky. And soon when I started college is kind of when newspapers were failing. Things were going to the digital landscape, and the opportunity for photojournalists were starting to get a little bit more slim. I also realized that I just talked a little bit too much to be behind the camera. And so I kind of took a pivot in my college academic curriculum, used my creativity with that photo background and kind of went in the public relations direction. And so that's what I ended up graduating with at Western Kentucky, and then also graduated with sport management as well. And then I went to graduate school at Western Kentucky. So I guess I'm a proud hilltopper. And I got my master's in sport media and branding. And then I worked at Western Kentucky for 7 years, and then came over here to Louisville. So my background at Western was mostly actually started in football recruiting and operations because I was a football girl. I was actually the little girl off Remember the Titans. That was my childhood. And so that's all I knew. And so that's what I started working in at first. And then I kind of got into the marketing, fan experience, revenue generation, multimedia rights, ticket side of the world at Western Kentucky, dabbled in licensing. And then, Louisville was hiring a director of brand marketing and licensing. And my boss, Lottie Stockwell, I knew her in the industry. We had gotten beers a couple times, and we always talked about if I ever wanted to get back to Louisville. And when this job opened, I called her. She said, "You want to come here and just do licensing?" And I was like, "Yeah, why not?" I want a little bit of a change. I was over a lot of stuff. Western's obviously a mid-major, so you wore a lot of hats at that level, and so I wanted to just try something new. And so I came here, and of course that was my licensing was my main role when I got here in 2022, and licensing sideline with Adidas, and then just any big brand projects that kind of touched us. Obviously, my background was very vast, and so that changed pretty quickly while being here. So now I oversee all of our creative services, so photo, video, design, and then also just kind of still do branding stuff, and then obviously still do licensing. So it all makes sense, though. I feel like, you know, if you're going to have a licensing person sitting in athletics and they're going to be doing other stuff, I think the content that's going out, the branding personality, branding guidelines, you know, the brand equity and how things visually look, it makes a lot of sense for that licensing person to kind of sit in that same realm. So it's worked out for now. I've kind of been in that role for the last 2 years. And that's gotten me here to Louisville. So it's really great. I mean, I grew up a Louisville fan. That was who I rooted for when I was a kid. And then when we were in that little small town, Cadiz, Kentucky, filled with lots of Kentucky Wildcat fans, it was me and my dad, super strong Cardinal fans. And so I love the brand. And so when I came here, I knew the brand personality. And it honestly is something I was looking for, just coming from a mid-major that's in more of the South region of Kentucky. I was looking more for like an urban, progressive brand that was confident in a different way. And so coming here, you know, was a no-brainer. And then obviously we've been, you know, punched a few times in the brand category the last couple, you know, decades or so, and we're just now getting to the point where we're able to be who we are. And I think it's a really exciting time for us to be here and for me to be a part of this brand. So long-winded, but
it's thorough. It's perfect. It makes our job easy. I have to ask, did it break your heart to leave arguably the best mascot in America?
Oh man!
And what do you call it? What do
Big
Hilltoppers
Red.
call them?
Big Red
mascot.
Yes,
Okay.
Big Red. So they are the Hilltoppers. The mascot's Big Red, and Big Red is, you know, in the College Mascot Hall of Fame. That's what they're notably known for nationally. If people don't know what Western Kentucky is, they know Big Red exists. And so, it was sad. And I think they had a couple of viral moments after I left for some full-bodied mascot logos that they had made. And actually, I started that program right before I left, and they've added to it quite a lot. And I think people are just obsessed with it because you cannot be a fan, and it's just very unique. They say, you know, because everyone's like, what is Big Red? Big Red is an it. And when I describe Big Red, I describe Big Red as the spirit of the university. Big Red is very flamboyant and has a big personality, and you know, is funny. And you know, we one of the taglines at Western Kentucky is "The spirit makes the master," and so we've kind of always said that Big Red was kind of the spirit of the university, because he's definitely not a hill, and we're the Hilltoppers because the campus sits on a big hill. But yeah. Big spirit from Big Red. Big Red's behind me in a lot of places. Everyone, if I'm on Zooms with people, they're like, oh my gosh, why do you have so many Big Reds? Like, what's the story? We love Big Red.
Yeah. This should get cut, but I'm sitting here thinking of Big Red, and it's a legendary, it's a legendary mascot. In like NCAA commercials, you'll see the Duke Blue Devil, you'll see the Tar Heel, and then you always see Big Red. It's just like,
that is so true.
Which one of these things is not like the others? But what actually had me giggling as you were talking is being in Louisville and being in Kentucky, you walk around and you see people with Cardinal tattoos and Kentucky Wildcat tattoos. Do people get Big Red tattoos?
So it's funny. Yes, they do. And recently I actually was watching, like, I don't know if you've kind of seen, usually around this graduation time, it kind of goes viral where the students that are mascots at universities reveal themselves at graduation. And that's what Big Red has always done. That's been the tradition where you may not know that they're Big Red, but then they'll go and accept their diploma with the president and have Big Red hands on. And that kind of says that they were Big Red during college. And I was just kind of watching, I was over our spirit programs at Western, and there was a lady that basically was queen of making the Big Red mascot program what it was, and that was always the tradition. And so I love that they've carried it on after, you know, her retirement. And there was a kid though that posted that he was Big Red, and he got Big Red's eyes tattooed like right here on his arm. And the eyes are getting a little excessive these days, but I saw that and I was like, that's pretty cool, because that's a conversation starter. If you're someone and they're like, what is that on your arm? And then you're like, I was Big Red in college.
That's great.
Yeah.
It's a fun story. So take us through your role now. It sounds like you are covering so much at the university, but what's a typical week look like for you? Does that change seasonally? Are you covering all of these sports?
Yep. Yeah. So, I mean, my position truly, like on the creative side, is really to advocate for those departments, try to make a strategy to where we're all cohesive, and we're, you know, ultimately reporting back to what our brand stands for. And so I'm not the one, you know, behind a camera shooting content every single day. But I think that was something that our creative department was missing, was just someone to be in a seat that can advocate for them. And especially in a world of artificial intelligence, it's, you know, it's more important now than ever to just, you know, to advocate for the human creation of creative content, but utilize, you know, AI where it makes sense. And so I
agree.
think, yeah, and that was the big thing, you know, on the creative side, was really just making us all in one big umbrella. Previously, the design and photo kind of stayed over in one section, video kind of stayed and reported in a different section, and they really needed to live under one umbrella so that we all were accomplishing and going after the same goal. And so that's kind of what I do on that side. Advocate for them, help project manage. We utilize a system called Litho to help us project manage design projects, video schedules, and photo requests. And so I help kind of manage all of that. I have leaders in each of those departments though, so that makes it easy, because they're ultimately the leaders of the design department, video and photo, and so I kind of rely on them to kind of keep the wheels turning every single day, and they just tag me in when they need me. But all the time they'll be like, this is the boss lady, and I'm like, no, I'm the advocate. Sure, on paper, if that's what it needs to be, but truly I'm just here to help. And so that's been the big thing on that. And I guess my background, knowing and appreciating creative content and execution, helps me, you know, be a great advocate for them. And then licensing, I mean, I am the one of one licensing department at U of L. So as you look at other institutions, it varies of what it looks like staffing wise. And you're either one or two places. Your licensing director either sits in athletics, just because I will say, maybe I'm biased. Most, I think, apparel and licensing purchases are pushed by your success on the field. And, you know, there's a huge portion of licensed sales and merchandise that is absolutely pushed by the academia side. And, you know, getting accepted into your university, going and buying a t-shirt, like that's the first thing that you do, right? But the longevity of it and the way that it stays relevant is truly by, especially if you're at a university where athletics is the front porch of your university, and that is the case here, that our success on the court and on the field has a big driver in our licensing revenue. And so I sit over here, I'm one person. A lot of other institutions, they might sit on the university side in OCM, like their Office of Communications and Marketing. They might sit in general counsel, in their legal department. I mean, it kind of varies. And so I sit in athletics. Licensing is always, from what I've understood, sit in athletics at the University of Louisville. And so I oversee all the licensing strategy for Louisville, and not even just on the athletic side of things. If, you know, the School of Law believes that they, you know, deserve more t-shirts in the bookstore, like that's something that I need to advocate and find a vendor to you know, provide that gap of merchandise that they're looking for, or find new ways to give access, whether it be on Amazon or maybe it's just a drop ship option online. So I have to strategize that for the entire university. The only thing that I'm also seeing any internal orders by the university, but I collaborate heavily with the creative director on the OCM side of the university. But I'm seeing those every single day to approve that marks are used correctly. And I'm just one person. So it's a lot, but it's fun. I love licensing. And I know we'll get into it, but licensing has just changed so much than when I was first in it. And when you thought about licensing in the collegiate space, it's just changed so much, and it's so unique now. And so I love doing that part of it. And the licensing community on the collegiate side is so close knit, and we rely on each other to help, make the best strategic decisions for our program. But yeah, so every day, every week looks different. We work in sports. When people are like, "What's your day to day look like?" I'm like, "You just have to sit in here and be a fly on the wall," because I couldn't tell you exactly how every single day looks. But from the licensing world, it depends. We have an agency that represents us for licensing. So Collegiate Licensing Company, they are the elite agency on the collegiate side that represents schools. And so they represent us on the agency side. They're the ones that are processing our revenue. And then they're the ones processing. I have to approve every single artwork. So if you've seen any type of t-shirt, sticker, button, cup, you name it, every product category that Jack registers for me, you name it, I have to approve every single one of those. So those artworks come through a portal that they manage, that I have to go through and look at. So a lot of my week is artwork approval. It is daunting. And
an important job. We love to hear it, because you're keeping those licenses, those marks alive that way.
Yes, keeping them alive. I know. I'll screenshot something out of the portal, and Jack's like, "It's not enough. I need to see it in the market." I'm like, "Damn it, Jack. Let me work. I'm going to find it." But anyways, right now I think I've maybe ignored the portal for 48 hours and I have almost 200 pieces of artwork. And this is not a busy time. So if you can imagine, we're sitting in the middle of March Madness, I'm having 300 to 400 pieces going through that portal within 2 weeks easily. So, and not every single piece of artwork hits the market, right? They're getting that approved to me before it's going into a sales sheet as they're going out and trying to sell it. Maybe it's hot market stuff that they're, doing some premature approval to be ready for when hot market stuff goes and happens in the postseason. So, but yeah, that's probably the big side on the licensing. Also, if anyone wants to be licensed by us, I'm monitoring all of those requests that go through the agency. Also, if I have any contracts coming up, renewals. And honestly, I feel like a lot of other licensing directors, and maybe this is just a good pub for Jack, because I think a lot of other licensing directors are also monitoring their registrations federally, and they're the ones keeping up with this mark needs to be re-registered, or we're coming up on our deadline. I don't have to do any of that. Jack does all of that for me. And being a licensing director, one of one, and also overseeing such a big creative department, it's not something that I can handle. And so Jack just, sends over a notice to me hey, we need to put in a register for this. Are we still using this mark? Can you, do proof of usage? If I need to register a new mark, I literally just send it over to Jack, and Jack takes care of it. And so that's really good partnership just on our front to be able to handle with my workload. But it looks different every single day, but I think the main thing is having a position that solely focuses on licensing. In sports, you usually have to always be doing something else too, but the focus needs to be there. The potential for licensing revenue and how that can grow is exponential. We've had the best past 2 to 3 years that we've had in licensing revenue, and we haven't even won a national championship. So, I think, we've won individual national championships, but not something that's going to move the licensing needle. We haven't even been in the CFP. So to know that we've been able to do this, with minimal amount of big postseason runs, only just shows the potential of what we're able to reach on the licensing side. So I know that was...
It is a big kudos to you, because it's correlating to when you've been at UFL.
Yeah, so it has been. And honestly, there's been some changes. I will say that. We can talk a little bit about video games and that coming back into the licensing world. That was a big revenue driver for us the last 2 years. And honestly, I tell people all the time, I was like, it's really not me. It's truly someone just paying attention. Just because we've had so many people in this role having to do so many other different things that it's easy just to kind of let it go and not think about how it can affect us. And I think if you just pay attention, just a little bit of attention, you can see that revenue climb, even if it's just, 100,000, 200,000 here and there. In this time in college athletics, every dollar counts. So it's an opportunity for us to make more revenue, for sure.
You have said a couple of things that I want to come back to, but with licensing, you authorize all of the artwork, you authorize all of the agreements, but are you seeing a lot of unauthorized use of the trademarks and the brand on the market? And is that in your list of responsibilities to handle?
It absolutely is. So when we play whack-a-mole business, yes, there are people in the market using marks that aren't authorized to use them every single day. I take one down, the next one pops up. So I say that all the time. It's whack-a-mole. You're never going to be in a perfect scenario where you're going to get every single infringer off the market. It's just truly in this digital landscape, it's not possible. But it was really important for us to invest in partnerships that could help us, especially as a department of one. I can't also be monitoring every single marketplace 24/7 because that's how fast someone comes up and is doing things incorrectly. So we partner with we have a third-party partnership with Counterfind. They are a company that monitors digitally marketplaces across the board for infringers. And I was able to authorize them to be able to act on our behalf to take down infringers. And that's actually, it's been a big correlation between them and Jack, because what they do is they take our registrations, our registration number, and our product categories that we're registered for in that specific mark. And as they find something on a marketplace that is that they know they don't have the rights to use, they're able to tag that registration and then tag the product category. And so a lot of the times she'll come to me and say, you own this mark, but you don't own it in this product category. I really recommend your attorney kind of getting, some more product categories in this specific mark to help us take more infringers down. And Jack's like, yeah, just have her send it over to me. And we usually have done, all of the product categories that we're using on the daily, but it'll be like small things like paper products or something like that, where she's been like, will give me a good list of something that Jack can work on too.
Right. And of course, over time, as you're adding trademarks and you're adding different categories, you might, when you start, just be selling t-shirt with that mark on it, but then it's really popular, so over time you expand and have to register. And unfortunately, you can't add categories to an already issued registration, so you have to start over.
So it's, I think that's been the infringer thing, and now more than ever is it a problem. And what's great is, she's monitoring those marketplaces for me every day. I'm able to see a dashboard live of how they get kind of molded into her dashboard, and then how she monitors them. And again, most people, if they had more staff, they're probably in the dashboard monitoring it themselves. I trust them with my life. And so I trust them to do it. And if she ever has a question, she just calls me. We go over about 10 to 20 artworks of, hey, do you want me to take this down? And we take it down. So they are a huge partner of us to even help us, I would say even like a third of the way, to try to get infringers off the market. And the big things that they're monitoring are like Etsy, Redbubble, Facebook Marketplace, all the ones that are popping up that are kind of similar to an Etsy, that, people are able to go in and sell their own things. And it's really kind of hard to market across the board. And maybe they're selling something that's generic, but they're using us in the description of the item. We're able to take people down that are doing that as well. So they're a huge partner of ours to make sure that we're monitoring it in the best way possible. Also, I would say I call them blacklisters, but if you're ever getting targeted for something on Facebook and it looks super fake, and it kind of lives on the black web, to where it's not really showing up for, it's not showing up on Marketplace. It might not be showing up within their dashboard platform, but I just got targeted for it because I interact, with things that are Louisville related. And maybe it's an Adidas jersey that we just launched that, is on, okay, I'll use this as an example. Donovan Mitchell came to a basketball game and he was in a jacket, in a dugout Adidas jacket that had marks on it that honestly was an internal jacket that was made for the basketball team. So it wasn't sold externally in the market. And then immediately all these blacklist sites started popping up trying to sell that jacket and using photos of Donovan Mitchell in that jacket. And so again, it's super hard to catch those types of websites because you have to be targeted for them. And people will send me screenshots all the time. And I'm like, your screenshot means nothing to me. Like, I need the link. And I'll try to get it taken down.
URLs. We always say URLs. Pictures are no good to us.
Pictures are no good to me because that website is probably bouncing around at 20 different IPs over the next 72 hours to try to stay on the market. And so, again, whack-a-mole business. I try to do my best to stay afloat, but I will say that I feel like we have such a what I call a vintage vault mark program. Our dunking bird is so iconic. Our football bird is so iconic, that I try to protect those at all costs. Just because we also have those at a higher royalty rate. I don't want them seen on, just every, t-shirt that you can imagine. I like to handpick the vendors that are representing those marks. And so, I try to be a little bit more stern on those marks. But obviously super important on our bird head as well, since it's our primary.
So as Mari-Elise said, you've touched about 100 different things that we have follow-up questions on, but we'll try and be we'll try and contain this. So I want to, gosh, I don't know where to go, but linking what I think are two things together.
Yeah.
Well, it's fresh in mind. Let's talk about royalty rate real quick. How does the university? We don't need you to whiteboard the economics of it for us, but how does the university go about valuing the value, the royalty rates, the licensing rates, the guaranteed minimums, all of those things that go into partnerships that the university enters into with apparel, with whoever? How does that work? Do you have an expert that you use? Do you have internal data that you use?
So I would say, honestly, I lean heavily on our agency for that model, just because they represent majority of the collegiate schools. And so I'm able to do a lot of peer institution evaluations. Like, they're not going to come to me and say, NC State does this percentage, right? But they're going to take 4 to 5 schools that are similar to me and be like, you're in the medium, of their royalty rate within, let's just say it's by product, non-apparel. You're in the ballpark of where everybody else is. Or I'll come to them and be like, listen, I feel like and I think that's good to have a non-biased opinion, because when you work for this brand, and also for me, having a background in this brand, I know this brand, I may think that this brand is worth more than what a licensee thinks it's worth, and I have to put that in perspective of like, I still want to make sure we have product. I don't want to be so stern of, what I think that we're worth, when I want to make sure we have versatility of product in the market, because a lot of licensees can say, listen, I can't afford that royalty. Or they may look at me and be like, you're coming at me with a royalty that's, higher than Ohio State. This doesn't make any sense. And so I think we have to be also just, I have to come to it at a table to say, I love this brand. I think we're worth this, but truly let's compare ourselves to peer institutions that make sense. And so that we can evaluate what those percentages are. But we have tons of different percentages. Like, it's not just like, I can't just look at you and say, oh, we have a percentage of 20%. Like, no, you got to come at me to what you're trying to do so that I can say, well, this is what that percentage is at. But if you're trying to sell it at a mid-tier kind of thing, you have to at least do this percentage. If you're coming at me to sell a cup, it's this percentage. If you're trying to co-brand with somebody else, it's this percentage. And so I can't just say that we have a blanket percentage, because we don't. It depends on what each vendor or licensee is trying to accomplish. And I think that's probably been the biggest thing for me. We upped a percentage, and I think it was also like when I first got here, it was kind of like, hey, we haven't touched really percentages in a couple of years. Do you want to reevaluate those? And, I think, hey, let's do it up a percentage and see how it goes. And then we can kind of go from there. Minimum royalty guarantees, it kind of just depends. When you first apply, you have a blanket minimum royalty guarantee. And then it kind of depends on which also they're asking for a license. They're also requesting certain distribution channels. They're also requesting certain product categories. So it all just kind of depends. Like, are they just selling it direct to consumer? Are they trying to sell on Amazon? Are they trying, it all just depends. And so I wish that I could just say that it all was this, but I would say that I rely heavily on my agency to determine those royalty rates for us, and to also just make sure that we're never being left behind, that we are represented in a peer institution and we're staying in the market. I would say a lot of the times we are compared to the ACC, right? But I also have to remember the schools that are in the ACC that also have a strong academia background, or, like
that, Louisville.
Yeah, I mean, we do. We have a strong academia background, but I would say we're known for undergraduate. Right. We're known for speed school. We're known for a lot of graduate medical dentistry, law school. Like, that's things that we're known for, that don't really, they're not integrated in the sport side of our university that much. They're here for, that amount of time, and then they leave. And that's another conversation I recently had with the School of Medicine, and how they want to connect their fellows in their medical school more integrated into the school, go to games, actually be a fan. They're really just here to get that portion of their school done and move on. And I get it. Like, that's the industry. And so, but there's other schools that were built on their academia side before they were even good in sports. And so we have to remember that when we're comparing ourselves. And we have some powerhouses in the ACC brand-wise. I mean, Clemson, Florida State, North Carolina, Duke. Those are really big powerhouses that we have to compare ourselves to. And so when we compare ourselves to ACC schools, I would probably say we're comparing ourselves to Virginia, NC State, Virginia Tech, Syracuse. And sometimes we'll throw in Clemson and Florida State just to kind of see where we sit compared to them. But obviously they just have a little bit of a different brand equity than we do. And again, that's the reality things that I have to come to. When people are like, well, we're at this, I'm like, well, are we? Let's run the numbers compared to everybody else. You have to come to it, with a little bit of a reality cap of let's try not to be biased because we love this brand so much. So yeah, it kind of just depends on what they're asking for, of what that looks like. But sometimes we'll also compare when we're in a renewal process, we'll compare, what were their sales the last couple of years? Do we need to up that guarantee? And it's funny, I was just talking to a vendor where I upped their guarantee to this. He came back and said, can we do this instead? We kind of lost a retailer in the time, that you're reflecting the sales off of. So yeah, I hope we still get those numbers, but give us a year. And I was like, no problem. It makes sense. So we're running numbers. We're looking at data. My agency within the platform where artwork and requests are going through, they have a platform on there called Insights. I can run just about anything. I can tag it by Birdhead, English L, what the sales were. They tag it to a UPI so I can see how many units were sold, what was the highest retailer, distribution channel. I can run anything. And I sat in some sessions on that in Kansas City this week, and I could have sat in there for hours to run and look at things.
Can I ask a branding question that then maybe dovetails into the NIL world?
Mm-hmm.
So Louisville, you mentioned earlier that you perceived Louisville as an urban progressive branding company.
Yeah.
I don't know what you mean by that, but in my brain, I think of all of the years of Louisville on Thursday Night Football in their black uniforms, and the Yum Center opening, and the Wall Street Journal declaring Louisville the most lucrative college sports entity in America, which is still blows my mind. And then I also think of, in the social media world, and our daughter is a Division I athlete and has been to the campuses and tried on the uniforms and done the poses on social media and posted them, and that all goes to brand. Is that all under your umbrella when you're talking about the creatives, the creative photographers and the departments? Is that the sort of stuff you're talking about? Yeah,
I mean, for sure. I think now, especially in the NIL world, I think we just had a session on this in Kansas City where the CMO at Tennessee, she said, I'm so tired of calling it NIL. Let's call it influencer marketing. That is what it is. It's influencer marketing. And I think we're just having we just have now the access to use them in that way. And so I love that she said that, because I was like, you're absolutely right. And so I think the recruiting part of it, that's why you see recruiting being so flashy, right? Like, you'll see a big SEC school at a football program have these Maseratis out on the football field where the recruits will pose with them. And so now it's turned into this, where, you come to a school, and if you don't get a photo shoot, who are you, and also from us, it's we want to provide that, in a way that is organic, but also I have to balance what our people are also covering. So currently how it sits with our staff, we don't cover recruiting photo shoots. That relies with internal to the teams. And so as you can imagine, football, basketballs, they have a bit of a bigger staff. They actually have some internal creative people that touch their brand and touch recruiting. And so they've usually been I say like, you know, a steamroll monster. Like they're good. Like they're able to provide the really cool photo shoots and things like that. And this last year we actually implemented a recruiting photo room for our Olympic sports. You know, our ones that don't have the biggest staffs. You know, it might be their GA or their ops person that's, you know, trying to take this photo shoot of them. And so in our, we call it Card Park, but our building right across from the SAC that houses track and field, some of our equipment rooms, and a big athletic training and strength facility, we basically got together with the SWA and one of our deputy ADs and was just like, this complaint is coming across from a lot of sports of just like, they don't have the access, right? Like we don't have the bandwidth to pick up recruiting. Like, because if I pick it up for one sport, I got to pick it up for all of them, right? I have 2 full-time photographers. I cover 23 sports, you know, like I'm not going to do that to them. And so, but we were like, hey, we could probably make a recruiting room, you know, photo room that's self-sufficient. Like we can teach everyone how to use it themselves on a budget. We can ball on a budget and make it happen. So this last year we did launch a recruiting room. So you go in there and there's 3 different setups for photo shoots. We anchored some paper from the walls. We have a red background. We have, you know, your generic white. And then we have like a kind of a wheat paste like branding wall where people can do that as well. And I give kudos to my photo department. They did everything. So basically, we bought a temperature-controlled lockbox with cameras in it. They have the code. They know how to go in. They set it on the tripod. It literally tells them step by step. You put your camera settings at this. You turn the light on to this. This green tape goes with this angle. This red tape goes with this angle. And every single sport has their own memory card and their card reader. And so we set that up to try to just give access to the other sports. Again, knowing how much it's a trending space and how if they're going to go to a Power 4 level, this is the expectation, right? And I think it was like they were just trying to make something happen on a, you know, cute wall in their building, but we need to make it a little bit, how can we take it a step further, but not, you know, put our staff members in, you know, a scenario where we're burning them out. And so it has a lockbox on it. Everybody gets a different code. It's kind of like what's trending now is like people to own photo studio space and then they rent it out to people and they have a code to get in and then you have the studio to yourself. It's kind of made off of that model. But we've just had to, you know, teach and coach our staff members a little bit more of how to operate a camera. But we bought Canon Rebels, which are super easy to use, but still produce really high quality photos. But yeah, all of that touches, everything's an extension of our brand, right? And that's more now than ever. And I think it's a good thing, right? It can be a good thing and a bad thing, right? Like we can have a kid from, you know, let's just say they're from Canada or something. And now our brand is reaching Canada in a way because this student athlete has come into play here. Now it could also, now we have to pay attention more to what if they get in trouble? That's also an extension of us now. And so just, you know, monitoring that and making sure, you know, it's the best that we can provide. But again, that NIL kind of turned into influencer marketing, like what student athletes are going to, you know, what people have a following, what people have a good personality, you know, and we're not always going after the person that has 100,000 followers. Like we're also going for the person that maybe they stand for something specific. You know, maybe they love mental health. You know, maybe they want to celebrate Pride Month because it means a lot to them. Whatever it may be, we can partner with them in a way that feels more organic. Also, we're now being extended and reaching way more people possible than just the people in the Louisville DMA.
So coming back to a question that Bruce had about valuing and talking about the student athletes that you're able to partner with NIL, how do you value...
Influencing, Mari-Elise. We use influencing.
It's okay.
Influencing. How are you valuing individual partnerships with student athletes?
Yeah.
Are you looking at social media numbers?
Yep. So we have our assistant AD of marketing and NIL. We also have a director of digital strategy. They use a platform called Zoomf, where they're able to monitor digital footprint of athletes, digital footprint of us, to kind of glance at that. But again, it's not like end all be all for us. We also want it to be, you know, organic. And sometimes some of these deals or these influencer marketing opportunities may come through our multimedia rights partner, Lairfield, and that partner may specifically want a baseball player. And so then we're able to just look at the baseball roster and decide who we think would fit in that specific prompt. Because I'm not going to put someone in front of a camera that hates being in front of a camera, right? Or I'm not going to... Kentucky Fish and Wildlife, we always do a big thing with them, and they just did a fishing prompt with some of our athletes, and like, I'm not going to send an athlete out there that doesn't know how to fish. So, I think Zach does a really good job of having a relationship with those athletes to kind of know their interests. But there's tons of platforms that we use. There's also a platform called Compass that's actually ran by Lairfield, but also through Collegiate Licensing Company. Our agency is an umbrella. Our licensing agency is an umbrella under Lairfield. They're an absolute powerhouse in the collegiate space. And so they also own a platform called Compass, where a lot of their kids go in there and sign their GLAs. That's been a whole different thing too, is group licensing agreements with student athletes. And so they go in there and opt into different opportunities that we have. Well, within that Compass platform, they're also able to add their interests and their hobbies and all of that stuff. So we're able to run things within Compass of like, we're looking for an athlete that, I keep using hunting and fishing, I don't know why, but loves the outdoors. We're able to pump it in there and then plop out if we have some athletes that are interested in that. Again, that also is a little work on us to make sure that the student athletes are going into that platform, putting in those hobbies and interests. I can't put it in for them, right? And so not everyone is represented in there, but we have the platforms built to really maximize and making sure that even if it's not the star athlete, that even there may be an athlete on the team that has a good story or has an interest that, we can tap into that makes sense for us.
And then that is a service that the university is offering that becomes a recruiting pitch too, right?
Becomes a recruiting pitch, helps me sell a t-shirt. There's truly a full-on domino effect of how, an influencer marketing can touch every single sector of revenue generation for us. And licensing is just, a small portion of that.
Can you talk a little bit about the co-branding with student athletes to sell t-shirts? For instance, a lot of the schools offer the opportunity for athletes to put their name on the back of their soccer jersey, and then you get a cut, they get a cut. It's a win-win for everyone. So tell us about how that has changed.
It has changed actually a lot when it first started. Let's just talk about when NIL first started. It was all about jersey sales. And I hate to be I think people think jersey sales is this crazy revenue driver. It's not. And it's not even just us.
Despite the internal conflict that Mari-Elise and I have about grown men wearing jerseys.
Come on, I need to sell jerseys.
Sorry,
but
I'll wear a t-shirt. I'm just not going to wear a jersey.
Yeah, I get it. But I think, when NIL first became a thing, that was the thing. They were I want to sell my jersey and I should make the money off of it. Truly, that was the first conversation in this, storm that has now hit us the way it has. And that's fine. So when that first happened, basically there was a bunch of companies that were launching these GLA platforms. Very similarly to, let's talk about the NFL for a second. Lamar Jackson, it makes the same amount on his jersey that our quarterback is making. And that's because there's all these different people that are taking a piece of the pie. Their player rights that they're making revenue off are streaming through the NFLPA because they are a part of a players association. So the NFLPA pays out the player based off of the jersey sales. Now, everybody's taking the piece of that pie. Fanatics has to buy the jersey from Nike that has Baltimore Ravens on it and then put Lamar's name on the back. So now they have a wholesale cost. They have a price margin they have to reach. And then they have to pay out the NFLPA to pay out Lamar. NFLPA has to take a slice, and then they pay it out to Lamar. So, everyone is taking a piece of the pie. So they kind of took that model that already existed and kind of brought it over to the college space, but we don't operate under a players association. So instead, there were people in the market that started group licensing agreements. So they started GLA companies. And at the time, there were two that were kind of the powerhouses of the collegiate space. And one was One Team and one was the Brander Group. And now, really, the powerhouse that kind of exists is One Team. The Brander Group recently in the last year was acquired by One Team. So One Team is kind of the powerhouse in the group licensing space. And so they're the ones monitoring and paying out the athletes on the merchandise side of things for the most part. Most companies or licensees that are selling NIL product, I'm frozen. Selling NIL product are are partnered with one team for the most part. Like if you're legitimate, if you're doing a one-off, like let's just say there's a company that's out of the area that athlete is in and they want to do a one-off with just that athlete, then we're able to kind of, work that out and they can pay the athlete directly. But the big powerhouses in the company, Fanatics was obviously the first ones that, started our name and number program is kind of what it was started at the beginning. So you buy a jersey with their name and their number on the back. You buy a t-shirt with their name and their number on the back. And the athlete gets a portion of that revenue. And literally the cost, I think of a jersey, they were getting like $8. A t-shirt, they were getting like $3 to $4. We're not talking about a lot of money.
We know because our daughter is collecting that revenue on her soccer merch.
Yeah, and
most of, I think, which comes from, us
family
overbuying for
yes,
our children.
It's just a different way of us giving her money.
Exactly, and that's the way it is here too. And so that was kind of the first thing. Adidas, obviously is our sideline provider and made NIL jerseys that were blank. But it was a lot that went into it. They had to provide numbers. Fanatics has to decorate them, and they ship them out. So it's a lot. And then there were some companies that started to emerge themselves that were just kind of focusing on tees and fleece. And then they were like, how can we make things not just be name and number and be boring? How can we make images on the front and make it cool, trendy, that has the athlete's name on it? So Campus Ink is a big provider for us that has an online store that makes NIL product for student athletes, and their kind of sales, it's again, everyone was trying to get into the NIL space. And so the big thing was like making yourself different than everybody else. And so Campus Ink's big thing when they first got into it was like, we won't go through a GLA and we'll pay the student athletes more than what they would make in a GLA. We'll do every single contract individual. And all of this was happening before the House settlement went through. So we were trying to find all these different avenues to pay the athletes as much as we could because we weren't allowed to pay them yet. The House settlement hadn't gone through. So now that the House settlement has gone through and athletes are making revenue share money, we're able to kind of run some things through other avenues, through GLAs that make a lot more sense. But that's kind of was Campus Ink's pitch at the beginning. So they're one of the big powerhouses. Athletes Thread is another big powerhouse in the NIL space, but yeah, so we have an NIL program through our agency. It's a different percentage, right? Like I can't do my full-blown percentage. I just talked about all the different pies everyone's taking and getting paid out. So we have a lower percentage for that NIL program, and I have to accept anyone that would come into that program. And then let's just get away from tees and fleece. Let's talk about trading cards. Trading cards is a huge revenue driver. If you're in the trading card business, I don't get it half the time, but my cousin has like a full-blown like hobby and like literally makes money off of flipping cards. And so it's a huge business. And now that that's able to be in the college space, it's a huge money driver. So Tops may come in and want to do a trading card, and then they may want to sign a specific athlete to go and sign 100 cards that will, be one of 100 that people will be able to get, which is a whole other money driver on top of that. And so the NIL reach for, I would say, merchandise, because that's a part of licensing merchandise and trading cards, is bigger now than it ever has been. And when we first started running numbers for NIL, it was like, God, all of this is honestly like, half the time it's a pain in our ass and we're not making any money off of it. And I will say it's still not a huge portion of our business, but the percentages that have gone up tremendously over the last 2 years have been monumental in the licensing space for NIL merchandise for sure.
You had mentioned video games earlier as being a driver and a recent driver for NIL influencer marketing, we'll say.
Yeah,
video games are back.
Yes, video games are back, and the EA Sports NCAA football game reemerged itself. Came back from the dead is like what I like to call it, and that was huge. It was literally monumental. And when that game came back, there was a lot of like who would be on the game, how would they be paid, and so they look at that by depth chart and kind of, it's those kind of 80-ish players that get on the roster for the game, and they all get paid for their appearance of the game. So basically what EA is doing is paying all of those athletes individually for their rights to be represented into the game, and everyone receives a flat amount. on the athlete side.
Interesting.
Yeah, everyone receives the same amount. Now, if there's players that are receiving more, it's because they're going to do more for the game. So they may be pushing it on their socials. Like EA is just paying for the rights for those athletes to be in the game. They're not also paying for the rights for those athletes to, say, buy the game. That's where they would decide, like, oh, I want to use, the quarterback at Louisville to push the game and, say, buy the game and to be on the cover of the game. Like, all of those things is where more money would come through. But
and that's an interesting dichotomy, not to interrupt you, but so obviously if you're in the game, how cool. You want to push it. But also if you're pushing sales under this model, you should get paid for influencing. So
yeah, I mean, you have to look at it from kind of two angles. Like, they're paying for the rights to use their name and their image in the game. And then if you want to use me to do some influencer marketing, that's another, it's just like an agency, like just like a marketing agency. You wouldn't just be able to just pay for someone's, if you just paid for someone's name to go on a roster of something, that'd be different. But if you want them to come do a photo shoot, you're going to have to pay more. And that's kind of the same thing.
Well, along those lines, here's a basic question for you. So anytime that a local athlete is hired by, let's say, anybody to do marketing, obviously the value goes up when they're wearing their Cards gear. So do you have to approve all of those deals?
So if they're wearing their Cards gear, because I like to kind of do it, and like you have to say, like, you're paying for the rights to use that athlete. You're not paying for the rights to use our brand. And if you want to pay for the rights to use our brand, that comes with a different cost, and that goes through our multimedia rights partner for the most part. And so those partnerships kind of will end up coming through Zach McKay, like I explained, who kind of oversees our NIL. And then he will come to me to say, like, does this look good? Or maybe Lairfield will just send it my way to say, does this look good? And sometimes our people are help creating that content. So I'm involved in the entire project from start to finish anyways, but he's the one kind of putting the athletes on the deal. And then, I'm approving that too. So let's just say, like, athletes aside, right? Like, we did a huge partnership with Surfside this last year. Surfside has, co-branded stuff all over town of us and them. I have to approve every single one of those pieces, whether it be a billboard, whether it be something going in a window, cling, a cooler, whatever it may be. I'm approving that too. So kind of both ways. But yeah, they have to, if a business wants to do something with an athlete, that's great. That's what we would call, just imagine, it's just true influencer marketing. If you want our brand to be a part of it too, then that's when, you have to pay for those rights as well through our multimedia rights partner.
And do you train the athletes on this so that they know, hey, if a local car dealership comes to you, you can influence for them, but as soon as you put that jersey on, we need to be involved? So do they have some sort of training program? Yeah.
Zach does all of that training program with them. So usually that's happening, when they're coming on campus this summer, or they're preparing, arriving back for the fall. We kind of hit all of those people. And that's kind of when we also hit for, like, this is how you opt into the Fanatics program. This is how you opt into Campus Inc. This is how you get on the roster for this. And we hit them with, like, a zillion things at once. So not really sure, what actually they're able to comprehend. But honestly, if we're talking, like, our revenue generating sports, men's basketball and football, like, almost all of them have agents. So those agents know better. And they know our rules, and they talk to Zach, and they're able to do that. If it's Olympic sports that they may not have agent representation, we're just able to help them navigate through any situation they have.
So agents, that must be a new development over the past few years. Can you talk to us about how working with agents has changed the dynamic?
Yeah, I don't have to work with agents that much, but Zach does on the daily. And I think, our team isn't having to do any type of negotiations with agents, but we're able to just say, like, hey, if you sign this deal and you need to do this, or hey, they're trying to do this, would you want to accept it? It would be this price. And we're able to work through the agents and maybe not the athlete as much, which kind of helps. It kind of takes pressure off the athlete, right? Like, they got their own schedule. They still have to go to class. They still have to pass their classes. They still have to go to workouts. They still have to go to practice. They already had a heavy plate to begin with, and now they're balancing all of this. Now, they're making revenue in exchange, so it's definitely worth it. But they still have a lot going on too. So I would say definitely, and there's some agents that, are better than others, but Zach usually has to deal with that the most. But yeah, I think that changes the game too. Again, it's like I said, when I was saying that I can't be biased about our brand. I may think we're worth this, but nationally, are we actually worth that? It's kind of the same deal. Like, the agent may think they're worth this, but are they really worth that if you compare them to their peers? And so it's kind of the same ball game. But as you can imagine, it's just like any other thing when you're dealing with someone that's representing someone else. It can be a little squirrely at times, but definitely a lot different than me and Zach have worked together previously, and we've been together for a long time. So when we first started this, decades ago, we didn't think it'd look like this for sure.
That's great.
On the co-branding front, as far as I can remember, University of Louisville and Adidas have been synonymous with one another.
Yep.
It's been a marriage that, to the extent that I represent the outside world, it seems very beneficial to both Adidas and Louisville. Is that, you see big name. I remember a couple of years ago, it was a big deal that Adidas moved to Under Armour, and we spend time in Los Angeles. We remember the UCLA going from famously suing Under Armour and now being a Jordan Brand team. How does you call it sideline apparel? I just call it, sponsorship. How does that relationship benefit the university from your standpoint? And, can you just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, you hit it. Like, when you think of us and you think of Adidas, and that just goes to the long partnership we've had with them. And, I talked a little bit about our brand personality and who I think that we are. And I think what's great is I think Adidas is that too, right? And so, like, we're the perfect brand to sync up with them. They are confident. They're sometimes looked at as the underdog, and they have this nationally known brand that intersects sport and culture. And we also intersect sport and culture. We are super culturally relevant within our city, within what we stand for, within how we dress. And, you talked about the black uniforms on a Thursday night. We talk about the infrared uniforms that we did, that were iconic, that were short sleeve basketball uniforms in the early 2000s. And, that was because of who we are and who they are and how that makes sense for us to be together. And, it's even like just walking around the city of Louisville, like, you don't really see a lot of Nike. I feel like we've integrated their brand fully into what the city is. And that's, made a lot of sense. And I think not only that, just our partnership being so historical and the drives that they've made towards NCAA now. I mean, this past year, they've picked up Penn State and Tennessee, two huge brands in the collegiate landscape that they'll have now representing partners as well. And, some schools would look at that as like, oh, you're going to have to compete against them. I think we're in a good spot to it's where they know who their OGs are. We've been with them for a really long time. We've been through a lot of things together. They've done a lot of things for us. We've done a lot of things for them. And I think that stands on value for sure. And I think Donovan Mitchell is a huge part of their partnership and has his own brand within Adidas. He is from Louisville. He is proudly from the University of Louisville, and how that connection makes so much more sense now. And we're able to get, I would say special treatment, but, our own Dawn shoes that are branded with Louisville, no other school is getting that. They're getting a regular colorway, and we're getting our own branded shoes for men and women's basketball, and doing pop-up shops, and, able to co-brand his brand to ours, and how cool and culturally relevant that is. And Donovan is a totally different person than he was when he played for us. He's a freaking powerhouse in Cleveland right now, and he's a better basketball player than he ever has been. And how now we're an extension of what he's doing, and when he comes and visits and he's taking pictures on campus, and how that is able to be an extension of us, and that goes back to our partnership with Adidas and how important that is. And so our sideline apparel business, what I call it, but we have minimum royalty guarantees with them. They have a fixed royalty rate that is with them. And I think a big thing about us too, I've talked about us being urban. Like, when you think of Adidas, you don't just think performance, you also think like Adidas Originals, and you think streetwear and really cool culturally collaborations with Pharrell, and they have Y3 and Yeah. Stella McCartney, like her stuff is crazy.
International Y3
like,
and
yes, the Y3 stuff is crazy, and and some partnerships went their way and some didn't. But like, I mean, they just dropped a 5-minute video ahead of the World Cup with Timothée Chalamet and Bad Bunny and Messi, and like, like all of those things that they touch, we are an extension of them, and what an honor it is to be a partner of theirs, where we're able to be seen on a national pedestal with what they're doing in the international space, what they're doing with big moments. And I think, that's super cool. And all that stuff carries over in NCAA. Like, they had a big priority of relaunching their superstar shoes. They did a big partnership with Kendall Jenner and Olivia Dean, and they launched like all these celebrities in that. And then go to our postseason gifting, they gifted all the athletes superstars. It was a priority of theirs from a big business model, and it carries down to the collegiate space. And we were really an extension of that. And it's a big priority for the for the Adidas with NCAA. And they don't have big, when you're dealing with Nike, you're dealing with the fact that they also have big partnerships on the professional side. And Adidas, has dabbled in being the apparel provider for the NBA, the NHL, and they're not anymore. So they're big apparel provider that's always going to stay true is their NCAA partners. And then their influencers that are Adidas athletes. And so I think that's huge, just to show the priority that they want in the NCAA. And, we're proud to be partners of them. And me and my boss say it all the time. Like, we're so glad that we're with a partner that does intersect sport and culture like we do here in the city of Louisville. And it just always just makes a lot of sense.
Anthony Edwards just did a video with President Obama for his presidential library. Anthony Edwards.
I know.
It's Adidas. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and we're and that's an opportunity too. Like, not, let's just put Dawn aside. Like, all the individual brands, the Harden brand, the AE brand that Adidas has on their side that we're able to collaborate with. We're gonna have an opportunity to do some with AE's brand here in the next year. And like, how cool is that? Like, how cool is that for recruiting? So again, cool. I talk about a domino effect. It's all a domino effect, right? Like, this is looking at, the check is the check. The Nike check is the Nike check, right? Like, we're never going to be able to change that the Nike check is the Nike check. And there may just be some people that's what they want. They're going after the check and that's it. But there's not a lot of other schools that can say the partnership that they have with Adidas that has these sub-brands that are so iconic and reach so many culturally relevant, like, moments. It's crazy. It's crazy.
I do think it's interesting how influential the partner brand can be for athletes that are being recruited, because it'll, they may like a school, and if they're on the fence, but they don't like the apparel, then that matters.
Totally matters. And I think, again, like you said, Bruce, like, we've been with Adidas for forever. So what you're getting when you come here, right? But the history that we have, the brand that we stand on, and that we have with Adidas, I think that people just know that's what we're known for. So they don't come in to try to fight that. That's what you're getting. And trust me, when you see a postseason gear drop compared to what the Adidas schools are getting, you can tell the difference of how they love their athletes and want them to be an Adidas product, even if it's not. And I'm cool with it not even being Louisville branded, that all, again.
Our daughter goes to an Adidas school. Okay. And it's a tiny school, and it's Christmas.
Yeah.
It's Christmas twice a year.
Totally.
It absolutely is.
Totally.
This isn't a this is going to be immediately recognized by my wife as a self-interested question. But you talked about staff and how you have a lot of staff. It seems like a pretty cool, popular thing to be in your space on a campus. Do you have lots of you said that basketball and football probably have a lot of their own staff doing some of this work. You have video, you have photo. How many folks do you work with at the university, and do you have interns? Do you have?
Yeah, great question. So on the video side, I have a director of video who oversees our content producers. So he kind of sits there at the top and oversees, 1, 2, 3 full-time content producers that touch our 23 sports in some capacity. And then I also have a director of technical production. He's so knowledgeable and he's so good at his craft. He basically makes things look pretty for us. He does. He makes it look pretty for us. He makes us look high production. And not a lot of other schools can say they have a position like that. He also lets us stay relevant when it comes to equipment and what we need to be a a high functioning creative content monster. And so that's kind of the video side. I also have a motion graphics specialist. So she focuses all on motion graphics, mostly touching our in-venue presentation. So your in-venue experience on a video board. So we're really utilizing motion graphics for the most part to make it, visually appealing for the consumer that comes to the game. But she's also touching some social projects and things like that. And we like to just say, like, we put her on the project when we want to make it really cool. And she's super talented. She's from Louisville, but comes from a background of, she was with CNN for a long time, where she did graphic packages for their documentary arm. And so just super cool to have someone with that background. Our design team, we have a director of graphic design, Tim. He's been at Louisville. He's seen the good, he's seen the ugly. He's been about every single facet. He started the social media team when social first emerged. He's been here for 10 years now, and he's our director of graphic design. He is my better half, because he helps me tremendously in just making sure we are having a good brand and it looks good, and he cares a lot about it. So that's him. He has 2 graphic designers underneath him. And then our photo department, like I said, I have 2 full-time photographers, Terrace and Mallory. Mallory has been here for about 2 years. She came from Florida. Terrace is a full product of what can happen at the university. She was an undergraduate student. She interned for us. She took our graduate assistant program that was made at the time, and then we hired her on full-time. So she's been great too. Our football program has an internal graphic designer and an internal content producer. And then our basketball program men's basketball program has an internal creative director as well. So we kind of are just, they're in-house in between the walls of those sports at all times. But my staff is complementing their efforts as well. And then, our photo staff has a huge photo student crew, and I really give all the credit to them, because we do not have a photo program here at U of L. So trying to recruit kids that are into photo or have some sort of experience at all coming to a university that doesn't offer, a 4-year program for photo can be really tough. And we have made an absolute, monster of a team of students that will literally have a sport of their own that they can call that they were the photographer or the team photographer for that sport for the entire season. And I give all that credit to them. And also let me mention that none of these student positions are paid. And so, and then video, we have about 2 to 3 students on the video team as well. And we're actually going to add a student designer here soon too. So we have to up the student game, and we have to. I think it's a great experience for the students, but also as we're going to be asked to do more influencer marketing, content producing, we've got to have a less workload of covering other sports. And if we're able to bring students in, I think when we talk about the other Olympic sports and being able to cover them and tell their stories, they don't really care who's doing it. They just want someone doing it. And so being able to invest in students will help us with that gap of coverage that we will have by being asked to do all this other stuff with a lean staff already. I mean, we're covering 23 sports. It's not a lot of people when you look at other, Power 4 creative staffs. But what's great is, it's what people are seeing right now. It's what's going to drive our brand. It's what's going to get us seen by a lot more people, and they are the best of the best. So
it's kind of a good full circle moment to your story, because you indicated that you started in photography. You thought you were going to go into media. It seemed like media is dead. Well, we now live in a society where video is everything. Video is the only thing. It's pictures and images. That's everyone's news is based on what they see this big on their screen as they scroll. So it seems stronger than ever, actually.
Yeah, it actually is full circle. I thought of that not long ago, where it's like I kind of had a background in marketing. I was doing fan experience. I was doing the in-venue stuff, and I loved that. Don't get me wrong. But really, my background is in the creative stuff. That's just kind of how my mind works. And I love that I'm just able to be in the same room with them. They teach me so much every single day, and trust me, I'll go to them and be like, how do I do this? Show me how to do this. And they're just so talented, and I'm just so envious of all of their skills that I just love that I'm able to be in a room with them. I'm just really grateful for it. So speaking of video, we could have a whole episode on music rights. But
let's do that.
We certainly can.
When are you free?
Yeah, copyright and music rights. We didn't even touch on AI. God, we could have a whole other episode of that too.
All
Hey,
right.
Copyright Society, I have to plug Copyright Society of the United States. All of the best copyright attorneys in the country is coming to Louisville, June 14th through 16th.
Okay, wait.
McBrayer is the presenting sponsor.
Okay.
McBrayer, our law firm, is the presenting sponsor of that event. So, yeah.
So this initial one podcast with you is now turning into a 3-part series. We'll cover music rights, we'll do AI. So listeners, stay tuned for that. And remember, we're lawyers, but we're not your lawyers. We just love talking about the law. We'll see you back here next time on Protected Thoughts, and check us out on McBrayerFirm.com. Thank you, Olivia, for being here.
Thank you guys for inviting me. Had a great time.
All content copyright 2026 McBrayer PLLC. All rights reserved.